Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Isaac. Or are we? Because you can see we don't have the D6, but we have the D20, which I would say it's even more of a broken item in dailies, but this is not the only questionable decision about this particular one. We also have Sackboy or Sackhead, and what that allows us to do is essentially break the game much easier with the D20 as it would have been otherwise. I would imagine if you just had a D20, just because of how intricate that item is and just how much effort and time it actually takes to break the game, a lot of people wouldn't bother. They would maybe use it a few times to get a few more consumables, maybe on the earlier floors, maybe roll some chests or pennies into something like bombs or keys, but later on, if a better spacebar item would come along, they would replace it, even though they had the so-called keys to the kingdom. But in this particular case, if you have Sackboy and Sackhead, there's no excuse not to break the game, because it becomes so much easier. And as you might know, if you don't know how to break the game with a D20, what ends up happening is you just get a bunch of consumables in a room, and you re-roll them, and then hopefully some of those consumables turn either into chests, or golden chests, or stone chests, or basically Anaconda chest. You open up the chests, and then more consumables fall out, and hopefully you get a battery charge out of there, or maybe you have some battery charge stored up in another part of the floor. You go there, you reroll again, you hope for more chests to come, and of course that just at some point that becomes self-sustainable, and you can just keep repeating that, and you just get a ton of points overall. And that's pretty much the way it goes. And the way, if you want to get basically every single item in the game, what you would do is hope that some of those golden chests contain some item pedestals, and then of course you would have to break for long enough to get either a Percha rune or cracked dice, and that will allow you to reroll the items as well. And it's such a weird concept to think about, because dailies, like I said, usually have some form of challenge or maybe some unique gameplay mechanic to them, but in this particular case, they just gave us basically what we all hate the most. And I wouldn't say maybe hate, but it's just, I think, pretty unanimous with the people who play the dailies and just with maybe the more regular players, is that breaking the game is not fun, especially in these methods where you really have to take your time and just, you're kind of forced to do it. There's really no other way to go around it, because basically if you have this combination of items, surely there's a person on this world who likes breaking, and obviously if they like breaking, they're gonna get all the AWAS runes or maybe the shovel, they're gonna break the game in any way imaginable, and they're gonna get forward and just get something like 50,000 points in total. And if you don't want to break and you want to deal with that, maybe you don't get any AWAS runes, or maybe you do, and maybe you even get to Shoal, and maybe you even get to the Dark Room, but just because you didn't take that extra time to break the game even more to get that consumable bonus, then you're gonna be left behind. And it sucks. I would say that it's one of those things which really isn't fun, and to be forced into doing this ever since from the start by giving you these items is, I feel like, a very questionable decision by the developers. I don't mind having one or two dailies which are obviously very strong, but at least, you know, like, give us Brimstone and Polyphemus or something like that to start out with. Like, that would have been much more enjoyable than going through all these shenanigans with the D20. And you can see just how annoying it can get to break the game with this combination, because what ends up happening most often than not is you reroll the chest, or maybe the bombs, the consumables, I mean, and then suddenly bombs appear, troll bombs, super troll bombs, and they hunt you down and gonna explode in your face. You're gonna take some unnecessary damage. It's gonna make you feel bad, because you know that it sucks, because the more consumables you have, the more exploration bonus you have, the more the damage penalty is gonna hurt. And in the end, I think I ended this particular daily with 11,000 damage penalty, and part of that was from troll bombs, which I rerolled, and part of that was just from how hard the Dark Room was. You know, enemies exploding in my face, or maybe chasing me down. I really wasn't expecting in most situations, but that's just how the Dark Room goes. It's naturally a very hard floor, and of course, to be in a position where you know that you can basically conjure every single item into existence, you have to do your due diligence, not only get strong enough, fast enough, but you also know that there's no rush, and you don't have to make it to boss rush if you don't wanna. And what's even worse, even if this was a run that goes to Hush, at least I think it would be even worse, even though it would maybe seem a bit more fair, but then in that particular case, you know that you would have to not only break to get the Mama Mega, you would also have to break in order to get Diplopia, and that again would have been just a much more intricate combo of ways. And I honestly mean it when I said that I didn't have the full intention of breaking this particular run trying to get Mama Mega. I just figured I'm gonna use some AWAS runes, and maybe if more show up, then I'm gonna use them, but otherwise I'm not gonna force anything into existence. But I entered the floor with the boss rush, and sure, I was late enough, and obviously there's still the possibility of getting Mama Mega, but it was the Curse of Darkness, and I was really perturbed by this. I hate the Curse of Darkness. I just felt like it shouldn't exist, and for that reason, and I swear for that reason alone, I decided I'm gonna break the game now. I'm gonna get that Degas rune just so I can actually remove it, and then once I got into the groove of it, once I actually had that established room of rerolls, then I just kind of went ham, and then eventually I did get Mama Mega, and of course I got more AWAS runes, and that did allow me to get to the end, and of course break the game that way. But I'm not against breaking, don't get me wrong. I really like the breaking, how you can break the game if you know what you're doing, especially with the D20. I feel like it's a bit more involved than most other breaking methods, but still, I just feel like it's a bad idea to force that onto the players, and especially with the players, when you think about what kind of people play the dailies, right? First of all, you have that not majority, I would say that group of people who plays the dailies every day, the constant kind, which enjoys the challenge, which enjoys going through the motions, talking about a daily, and then maybe trying to figure out get a better score in the end or not. And then you have the second group, which enjoys playing the dailies, but maybe aren't as serious about it. They just want to get to the end. They like the aspect that the run is the same for everyone. They like making silly decisions because they want to see how maybe different outcomes or maybe different things that you do in the game affect the outcome. And again, that's a very fun way of going about it. And then you have the third majority, which I think appeared in Afterbirth Plus, and that's when people are just trying to get through and get the achievements. And I would say it's not fun for any of those groups, because if you're just trying, okay, sure, if you're just trying to get the achievement, you'll break the game a bit, you'll get to Mom, you'll beat Mom, and then you'll just end the daily. You don't even have to do boss rush. Obviously, that you can do a lot if you're just trying to get to the end without ever having to compromise your run. But if you're in the position where you're the second player or the first player, if you're the first player, obviously you're very worried about score. Now suddenly you have to do it. But even if you're the second player who plays the game for fun, I would say that it's not enjoyable, because this run only goes to Mom, and you know that there are people out there who are gonna have crazy strong runs, but maybe because you don't really want to finagle with this and just deal with this, then you're gonna end up either having a weak run and it's gonna end early, or you're gonna have a strong run and it's gonna end early. So now suddenly you have to work very hard, and it's a very annoying process to get those AWAS runes or maybe the shovel, just so you can enjoy the run a little bit more. And obviously that's partially the fault of breaking, but I would say the bigger fault here is just the fact that we're going only to Mom, which is again a bit ridiculous. I know that this isn't seeded, so it's not like it's meant to go to Mom every time you get a daily. It's rerolled into a random daily goal and the random seed, even if there are some predefined rules, like in this case give the player the D20 and give the player the sack boy. The seed is still random and the goal is still random, and I totally understand that, but it just does feel wrong for certain dailies to go only to Mom, especially when they're obviously meant to illustrate that they're supposed to be very powerful and very strong. At least if you're gonna give us this combination of items, let us enjoy it, because that's just gonna be better. And that was my main goal in this one. I'll have to say just the fact that I tried to get as strong as possible, and I didn't shy away from picking up any single damage up that I found. I just felt like it would make it more palatable to get through the daily and get to the end. But that's really what it is. I think in the end it's just the fact that it takes so long to do anything, and you can see that this particular run is already approaching the 1 hour mark, which is you know, I could have stopped here easily and my score wouldn't be hurting, but I really wouldn't be doing myself all the diligence if I just went to the boss and just ended it right here. There's a sacrifice room here. I obviously have enough health to get to the dark room, and I have the forget me now, so at least I can try to do something with this. But maybe one another thing that I haven't ever talked about is just how little I enjoy the dark room. It's a floor full of very difficult enemies and bosses, and they end up getting you. There's really no way to avoid damage in such situations, but the laser guys and the brimstone eyes, I hate them. I'm not sure how they're called, but I think they're like tumors with lasers in the darkroom, and they shoot in the most unpredictable way possible. Sometimes they'll shoot you very fast and there's no way for you to dodge them, and sometimes they won't shoot at all, and it's so hard to predict. And even if you're really strong and you always keep moving in the right direction and trying to kind of maximize the distance between you and them, they still end up getting you sometimes. I'm not really sure what you can do in that situation. And the brimstone eyes, don't get me talking about it. In brimstone eyes, when they shoot you, sure, they shoot you in the direction where you currently are, so that means you have to get out of the way, you have to wait for them to shoot, and then you have to stay in that place. But when there's 3 of them, there's really no way you can go unless you kill 2 of them immediately. Even if there's just 2 of them, it can be very annoying because they're usually on the separate sides of the room, but at least that way it's manageable, because as soon as you shoot one, then you can deal with the other one. But when there's 3 of them, it just becomes this very odd effort of trying to dodge the brimstone and shooting the other one while you're dodging the brimstone, and it's just a weird combination of things that's going on. I really don't enjoy some of the enemies here, but luckily, because this run was so strong and because I did try to make an effort to end up with a really overpowered run, I did get to the end, I did beat all of the enemies, even if I did have the 11,000 damage penalty. At least I broke the Shrek to some degree. I got to the Dark Room, I did it twice, so everything did work out in the end. I would just like to say, if there's anything sounds weird with my voice, it's first of all, I'm recording this in the morning because I didn't have the time to do it yesterday because I came home very late, but also my voice is kind of hoarse and it's not really working properly. I had to redo this recording a few times just to kind of get it to sound right, and I still feel like there were some moments where maybe my voice slipped up a little bit. So if there's anything related to that, or you try to leave a comment, that's basically the reason. But we did end in the 30-second spot, which is not that bad at all. I'm not sure how much this is gonna hold, but I did play this pretty late in the day, so I have to check grid, but even though the scores are probably updated now because I'm recording this the next day. But anyway, we did finish in a pretty good spot. I did enjoy the daily for what it was. I got into it as the time went on, but I do wish that it wasn't forced on us, and most of all, I wish that the mom food daily wasn't there, at least for this one, because we had 2 already, and hopefully today's daily won't be another one of the food kind. So what can you do? That's Isaac for you. It just happens. There's really not much that we can do other than take it and hope that the next daily will be better. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.